Last summer at the Tucson Gem Show, a dealer handed me a 14-pound gray stone with black branching lines across one face. It looked like something you would skip across a pond. He paid $1,800 for it. The finder picked it up from a dry creek bed in Idaho using a $27 kitchen scale and a flashlight. 5 surface patterns hide value like that, and 4 field tests under $50 total will reveal every one. The finder was Jody Padia, and that stone came from Bruneau Canyon, Idaho, in 2019. Padia had been working alluvial gravels for 3 seasons before he noticed the black, fern-like stain spreading across a flat cobble half buried in dried mud. Those lines are dendritic manganese. Pyrolusite crystals precipitate through microfractures when manganese-rich groundwater dries inside fine-grained silica. The process works like ink soaking into paper through its fibers, except the ink is dissolved manganese and the paper is a network of hairline cracks too small to see without magnification. No fractures, no dendrites. No dendrites, no agate. The pattern itself is the proof of internal structure. Your first field move costs nothing. Pour water from your bottle over the rock. Watch the branching lines. If they sharpen and pop against the wet surface, becoming 3-dimensional and crisp, you are looking at microstructure worth keeping. Dry, those same lines blur into the surrounding gray matrix and nearly disappear. That contrast between wet and dry appearance tells you the silica host has translucent depth, which means cutting potential. Padia ran that test. Then he held an $8 Convoy S2 LED flashlight flat against the back of the stone in the shade. The stone glowed orange-red. Light was passing through translucent chalcedony. He knew immediately. Agate. He sold it rough at the gem fair circuit that fall for $1,800. Over 100 people had already stepped across that same creek bed the same season without bending down. Now, Padia could have stopped there. He did not. He went back and pulled 6 more dendritic specimens from the same wash that year, each smaller, each between $200 and $400. The pattern led him to pay. But the second surface texture is the one that fools even experienced hands. Botryoidal texture. Small rounded bumps clustered across a rock face like frozen grapes. This forms when minerals crystallize outward from dozens of tiny nucleation points inside an open cavity, growing freely in every direction at once. Chalcedony does it. Malachite does it. And so does iron oxide, which is exactly where the trap lives. A $3 steel nail from any hardware store separates the keepers from the duds. Press the tip firmly against the bumps and drag. If the nail leaves a visible scratch or white powder, you have calcite or soft carbonate. Walk away. If it slides off without leaving any mark at all, that surface is harder than 6.5 on the Mohs scale, and you are holding silica-based material worth cutting. In 1987, the Del Rio family pulled a 340-pound botryoidal malachite specimen from a copper mine waste pile in Chihuahua, Mexico. That stone now sits behind glass in the Smithsonian. Comparable rough sells for $180 to $220 per pound on today's market. But here is where I have watched experienced collectors get burned at mineral shows and in the field. Gossan, a rusty iron oxide crust made of hematite and goethite, mimics botryoidal texture almost perfectly. Same grape-like bumps, same rounded surface. Different mineral entirely, and the implications are enormous. Gossan forms above sulfide deposits, often gold-bearing zones that have oxidized at the surface over millions of years. Therefore, a botryoidal rusty surface is not copper ore at all. It is an iron cap, and what sits beneath it could be worth far more than any malachite specimen. The specific gravity test sorts this out in 30 seconds. Fill a plastic cup with water from the creek. Weigh the stone dry on your Escali Primo scale. Then suspend it on a wire loop into the water and read the new weight. Divide dry weight by the difference. Malachite reads around 4.0. Chalcedony reads 2.6. Iron oxide gossan reads closer to 5. The numbers do not lie, and they cost you nothing beyond the $27 scale you already carry. The third pattern is concentric banding. Rings of color layered like a cut onion, visible on any broken or weathered face. Each ring marks a single pulse of silica-rich water filling a cavity over geological time, and each pulse carried slightly different trace elements, iron, manganese, chromium, that shifted the color from white to rust to blue to clear. Tighter and more defined bands mean higher cutting quality and higher dollar value. Material from Oregon's Succor Creek and Idaho's Bruneau Canyon sells for $5 to $50 per pound rough, with exceptional pieces reaching $200 or more once a cutter exposes the full pattern. The backlight test is your best friend here. Press your $8 Convoy S2 flashlight flat against the stone in a shaded spot. Cup your hand around the contact point. If the rock glows orange-red, light is passing through translucent agate beneath the surface. Jasper and flint stay completely dark. No glow, no translucency, no cutting value. This single test separates a $10 rock from a $200 rock in under 5 seconds without ever breaking the stone. I have cracked open specimens with gorgeous concentric rings on the outside, only to find dead gray chalcedony within. And I have walked past plain, skin-ugly cobbles that a friend later sawed open to reveal museum-grade fire agate banding. The outside is a clue, not a guarantee. That is why you backlight before you swing. If you want exact coordinates and field guides for locations like these, hit subscribe. New content every week. The fourth pattern is Druzy coating. A surface dusted with tiny sparkling crystals, like coarse sugar on a donut. Run your thumb across it, and you feel the grit of individual crystal points. This texture forms on the inner wall of a cavity after the main mineral has already deposited, meaning the rock is hollow or was hollow at some point during its formation. Amethyst geodes from Uruguay start exactly this way on the outside. A dull brown potato-shaped rock the size of a football, with nothing remarkable except a faint sparkle on one small exposed face where the outer rind has chipped away. That sparkle is your tell. The scratch test confirms what you have. Press your $3 steel nail firmly against the Druzy surface. Quartz Druzy, hardness 7, will not scratch under any pressure you can apply by hand. Calcite Druzy, hardness 3, gouges immediately and leaves white powder on the nail tip. The difference between those two results is the difference between a specimen worth cutting open and a rock worth leaving in the creek. But you need to open it carefully. One wrong swing with your Estwing E3 22P rock hammer, about $32 from any hardware store, and you shatter a $1,000 geode into worthless fragments. Angle your chisel along the natural seam where the outer rind meets the inner cavity. Tap gently. Let the crack propagate on its own. Let the rock tell you where it wants to open. That lesson cost me a week's pay in the Pilbara region of Western Australia, where a single misjudged hammer blow destroyed a smoky quartz specimen I can still picture in detail 15 years later. I learned patience the expensive way. The fifth pattern is Chatoyant shimmer, a silky band of light that rolls across a stone's surface when you tilt it slowly under direct sun. This phenomenon only happens when thousands of parallel fibrous crystals pack tightly inside the mineral, reflecting light in unison like a satin ribbon catching a spotlight. Tiger's eye produces this effect because it is made of parallel quartz fibers that replaced an earlier mineral called chrysotolite. Blue asbestos, fiber by fiber over millions of years, while preserving the original fibrous architecture. Chrysoberyl cat's eye does it even more dramatically, and the market pays $50 to $500 per carat for top-grade material. The wet surface test, brings out the shimmer on rough stones that look dead when dry. Pour water across the surface and tilt slowly in sunlight. If you see that rolling band of light, your next move is the scratch test. Satin spar gypsum mimics chatoyancy convincingly, but it scratches with a fingernail. Hardness 2. If your stone resists the fingernail, resists the steel nail, and still shows that moving band of light, you are holding something worth cutting and polishing. In 2003, an anonymous prospector pulled a 6-pound Chatoyant tiger's eye boulder from a dry creek wash in Plumas County, California. Nobody else had looked twice at it. That stone was cut into over 200 cabochons, each averaging $35 wholesale. $7,000 from a single brown rock. The specific gravity test confirmed it right there in the creek. $27 Escali Primo scale. A plastic cup of water. The stone suspended on a bent paperclip. 2.65. Quartz based. Not gypsum, not glass, not a trick of afternoon light. 5 patterns. 4 tests. The wet surface test costs nothing. The scratch test costs $3. The backlight test costs $8. The specific gravity check costs $27. Under $50 total, and you never need to crack a stone blind again. Every river wash, every canyon wall, every gravel bar you have walked across without looking down carries stones with these exact surface signatures right now. The difference between kicking them into the current and carrying them home is 30 seconds of attention and a handful of tools that fit in your back pocket. Now you know what the patterns mean. The only question is whether you will read the next one or walk past it like everyone else.